Touchdown Tampa Bay. You're listening to the Pewtercast.
Welcome to the Pewtercast. I am Brent Allen, your host, and this is our final thoughts and grades episode for Week 1, Bucks at the Saints. I'm joined, as always, by the man with all the numbers, Ren Daxt. Ren, how's it going, my friend?
It's good. Feels just as good today as it did on Sunday.
Oh, man, Victory Monday turns into Victory Tuesday and last Victory Week.
Okay, Victory Week, sure. I'm down for Victory Week.
We've got a fun episode lined up here, Ren. We're kind of back at it here in the regular swing of things. We've got a special guest. We're going to be joined by the newest member of Buccaneers.com writing staff, Carmen Vitale. Man, that was a really fun conversation. We've actually already recorded it, and we're going to get into that one here in just a sec. But then we're going to wrap all of this up with our final thoughts of the game, and we're going to grade out the different units around the team. And now that we've kind of had a chance to go back and watch and listen to the press conferences, see some film, we're going to see if anything's really changed since the Instant Cast on Sunday. And then also we're going to go ahead and we're going to record our fan interaction segment, but that's going to come out a little bit later this week. We've got a pretty healthy chunk of things that people have sent in to us. So that's where we're going to take a look at any new iTunes reviews, comments, tweets, emails that you guys have sent in. Guys, the season is back. This is going to be a lot of fun. But first up is Carmen Vitale, so let's get into it.
How was the trip?
Oh, I don't travel.
That was a question I had.
That's Scott's job. Scott travels, so.
And he's not like, like the Pewter Report guys, when they got Trevor, they stopped traveling and they just booted his butt and made him start traveling. Like, that's not the case. Scott's still taking the trips, huh?
Scott still takes it. And, he also does, like, the pregame show with Casey.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
So he's, like, on camera and stuff, which is really
So he
great.
kind of has to go.
Yeah, so he kind of has to go.
Gotcha.
I will be going to Chicago, though, but that's just kind of because I want to go to Chicago, and that's where I'm from, so.
Now, Carmen, when you go, do you, like, get to fly on the team plane and go with the team, or is this, like, you're picking up Delta coach class or something?
No, this I'm flying commercial for because if I went with the team, there would be no point in me really going because it's like you fly in on Saturday, you're doing a bunch of stuff. Like my family doesn't live directly in the city either.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're out with the team right after the game. So it's like I really wouldn't even have time to see who I wanted to see when I go home. So I'm just flying regular old commercial and I think I'm going in on Friday afternoon, actually. After practice, I'm leaving, and then I won't be back till Monday morning, so it'll give me some time.
So, like, with I saw on the, okay, by the way, whoever it is that's doing your all video content over there,
Yeah.
Those people are amazing because it is amped up this year. But the what they call it, the wave or the current wave.
The current.
Yeah. So, like, I think was it that one? or I don't. Maybe I saw like a YouTube video about the team traveling and like the logistics that it takes to make the team travel.
That's insane.
And they said something like it was like the final whistle blew, and there was a video of whoever is in charge of all that saying, "Okay, guys, wheels up in an hour, 60 minutes, go." Is that like true? Like, is it the game's over and they're on the plane within like an hour?
Oh yeah. Like they get police escorts to the airport. I mean, obviously it depends on how far the airport is from where they're staying or from where the stadium is. But I mean, they're right on the bus. They get police escorts out to and then they drive right on the tarmac. There's no TSA. They go through TSA at the stadium. So
right.
There's like a checkpoint there before they get on the bus. So the bus just goes straight onto the tarmac. They get off the bus and then into the plane, and then that's it.
Wow.
So.
See, I would think it would just take more than an hour just to get,
Do they drive the equipment or do they fly the equipment?
They drive it, and they leave like a couple days before.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, these would be great things if we just had them recorded.
You know what? I've actually already hit the recording button, and we are recording right now. And we've got Carmen Vitale, Buccaneers.com, the newest member of the writing staff there. Though you're not the newest member of the organization. You've actually been around for quite a while. We got to catch up a little bit during training camp. But for those of our listeners who didn't hear that show, back up and tell us a little bit about you and who you are here with the Buccaneers.
Well, my title is staff writer and senior coordinator of digital content. So it means that I get to be a part of not only writing a bunch of stuff for Bucks.com, but I also get to be a part of a lot of our social initiatives, a lot of our community initiatives, and get to work with just a fabulous digital staff that, runs the gamut of talent. You guys mentioned before, like the video content and just even like the graphics content and all that, the creative team. It's a really very all-encompassing effort by everybody. So I get to be involved in a lot of that stuff, which is really cool. But I started as the team's copywriter. So it was very, I love the branding side of things. There is absolutely, it's a really cool thing to be able to speak on behalf of an entire organization, even though people don't know you're speaking for them. But it was something where I had kind of taken this second guess of, did I want to be in marketing, or did I really want, when I grew up wanting to be a sports writer. But I had this second guess moment, which turned into a couple of years of a moment, where I thought I wanted to be more on the branding and the business side of things. And I just missed it too much. I missed the game too much. So I got promoted from copywriter to staff writer, and here I am.
There you go. Carmen, can you clear something up for Ren and I, like a little debate that he and I keep having?
Okay.
The branding that you guys have, and I know you've kind of moved beyond this, but maybe go back. The black lines and stuff, are those tentacles?
Yes, they are tentacles.
All right, folks, you heard it here. Officially, they are tentacles.
Yes, any sane person, because it's like a kraken, right?
Yes, that's kind of the new element that was added, is this notion of a kind of
the Krakens take down the ships, right? Like they're not our friends.
Oh, here comes Brent.
Well, they take down the opponents.
Oh, okay. I'll go with you on that.
Yeah, okay. The Kraken. We sail in the Black Pearl. The Kraken does our bidding.
Oh, it does our bidding.
Exactly.
I got you.
We release the Kraken.
Yes.
On the Eagles because their tentacles are so long they can reach in the sky.
We actually even toyed around with trying to figure out a way to incorporate that in copy wise, the whole release the Kraken thing. But I think somebody has some sort of trademark on that.
Probably Disney.
Probably. Let's be honest.
Although if Disney doesn't own the NFL by now, what are they waiting on? Because they will soon, I'm sure.
They will soon. They own pretty much everything else in this country. So
right. So the video bumps before the game. Previously it's been the other team ships sailing into Tampa and we shoot them up and they sink. Are we now going to see the Kraken come up out of the water and pull them down in?
I guess you're just going to have to come to a game and see.
Well, funny you say that. Ren and I will be there.
Great.
Yeah, Brent has season tickets, and when no one else wants to go with him, I get to go.
Oh, great.
It is really great for me. let's talk about some of that. Well, actually, let's go back to this because you said that you've always wanted to be a sports writer. Like, what was the impetus for that? Like how young were you? When did this epiphany happen? Why did it happen?
What's funny that you're asking me about this now is because the team that is coming to town is the team that started it all for me, actually. Despite the fact I'm from Chicago, my father is from Philly. And my dad's entire family is still in Philly. And they are, I think every Eagles fan is probably a diehard Eagles fan, but like my godfather, who was my dad's brother, had to actually go to anger management because of Eagles games. Like, that's a good story.
I believe that. That sounds like everybody in the stands at an Eagles game.
Yeah,
exactly.
That sounds pretty typical.
They are who you think they are. But I was sitting in a living room when I was about 9 years old. And I was with my cousins and my uncles, and we're watching an Eagles game. And to this day, I haven't heard combinations of swear words that I heard in that living room. But I loved every second of it. And I had loved football prior to that. But in that living room at that moment was when I somehow got curious about someone on the sideline, or I don't know what it was necessarily. I don't remember exactly. But I basically was like, who's that? What do they do? And my uncles and my dad were like, well, honey, you can work for a team and by this point I had already been writing as a child. My dad put a computer in my room when I was like 4, which I don't know why that was a good idea. But I used it very constructively, and I used to write stories. And so they were all like about sparkles and mermaids and unicorns and all that. But
is there any of that out there left? Can we get a copy of one of those somewhere?
Honestly, I don't even know where it was ever saved. That computer is no more. That was 20 some years ago that I'm not going to go into. But basically, my dad then made the connection for me that you can write about the teams. You can write about football. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what? It was this giant epiphany of me. Like, I always thought, to be involved in football, you had to play. And I knew as a girl growing up that was not something that was going to happen. So yeah, that was kind of what started it all, was just like this love affair with football, which correlates to the Philadelphia Eagles. But I grew up a Bears fan, and then, but now I'm a Bucs fan through and through.
You're a fan. I love it. I have a personal thing about this. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not going to go into all that. Hey, Carmen, talking about that, because kind of, sort of referencing the media there a little bit, I'm sure some of them aren't fans, but I have a strong feeling that a lot of them really are, even if they say they're not. Just out of curiosity, this is more personal.
I'm not gonna go into it.
But then I will. Yes, we do that all the time on this show. Carmen, Ren and I, we got to be credentialed for a couple days over the past over this training camp and different things like that. Got a pretty good feel for the media room and how that works, and what the press conferences and stuff are like. But you guys, like you and Scott and Casey's, not really what you guys do. Like that's kind of a different deal, right?
Yes, a little bit.
Yeah. Like, where do you guys work? What does that look like for you? Like, how much more insight do you guys actually get, than what the media corps people do?
Well, at the risk of, I don't know. There's a trade-off, right? So when you work for the team, you do get access to things that outside media does not. Mm-hmm. But the trade-off is that you represent the team as well. Mm-hmm. You don't I am allowed to be a fan essentially of the Buccaneers because I work for the Buccaneers. Mm-hmm. I don't have to. I try to be objective, and I know Scott tries to be objective as well, but we're given a little bit more leeway in that. And at the same time, we're limited. The reality of it is that we are limited in what we can write and what we can say about the team, given that we work for the team.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But
you're always trying to take the optimistic side.
For the most part, and not to say, like, Scott does a really good job. I'm still kind of learning that line because as a sports fan, when you grow up, I feel like you just inevitably, and especially being a Bears fan growing up, like I just have this very pessimistic view of football usually.
Bucs fans wouldn't know anything about that.
No, they wouldn't know anything about that. No. So I'm trying to figure out the line still, I think. And I think Scott is a really great example. And he's the one that he's my sounding board for everything. If I'm worried about if I should write something, if I shouldn't write something, or is there a better way to say this that's not going to come off a certain way? Like, he is really, really good at that. But I mean, that's a part of being part of the organization for 26 years. So he's got that kind of down pat. But what the pro of that is, or the positive side of that is that people around the building and on the football side trust you a little bit more with things a lot of the times. At least I would like to think that. I have a really great relationship with a lot of our coaches and our coaching staff. And it's basically me going in and like bugging them like, hey, what does this mean? When this happened in the game, why did that happen? Like, I try and dissect absolutely everything because I want to make sure that what I'm writing is a good reflection on what happened and it's accurate. And so I have these great relationships within the building because I see these guys every day and I can just go into their, office at the correct times. I don't want to make it sound like I just go in there willy-nilly. I don't.
Kick your feet up on the desk.
Right. No, there's still a healthy separation there. But I if I catch them in the lunchroom or whatever, and the same thing with the players. It's, we're there for open locker room and stuff like that. And all media members are there for open locker room. But at the end of the day, like, if I really need something from one of our guys, I've developed relationships with a lot of them to be like, hey, would you mind just, helping me with this and this and this real quick? So it's a trade-off, but I like being on the team side because I never have to make those tough calls as to if I really should or shouldn't say something.
Is that one of the reasons why, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I've ever heard Scott Smith ask a question at a press conference. As far as I know, I don't think I've heard you ask one either. Is that sort of one of the reasons why? Because, if you really need to know something, you could ask, you could walk into their office or find them in the lunchroom.
Right. That's a big part of it. You follow Scott's lead, but Scott will ask questions, especially if there's something in particular that he knows that he's going to write about. A lot of times what happens is we kind of let things unfold how they may, and the chips fall where they may. And then him and I will kind of put pieces together from how the chips have fallen. So it's kind of like that comes first. Like, a lot of times the press conferences come first, and then we pull something out of that that we found interesting, that we have other prior knowledge of, or what have you. So you guys
are letting the stories come to you instead of deciding on the story beforehand and trying to get quotes for it.
Exactly. So, it works both ways, but I would say for me personally, I probably get 60 to 70% of my stories from, it's a reactionary thing. Whereas I maybe only go in 20 to 30% of the time, with an idea of what I want to write about.
So let me ask you about this, just kind of turning it towards, what's happening around One Buck, right now. Okay. I know it's got a new name there. Do you guys still refer to it as One Buck, or are you guys really around the building, here at the Advent Health Training Facility?
It's the Advent Health Training Facility. 100% the Advent Health Training Facility in your place.
That is such a mouthful.
It is, but when you have a company that is willing to support a lot of things within your organization monetarily,
in other words, they're cutting the fat check. We'll call it whatever the heck they want us to call it.
Yeah, it's the business side, but sure. It is a really great relationship, honestly, that we do a lot of stuff with Florida Hospital. We had that big event at Raymond James Stadium that we co-hosted with Titus O'Neil. And they gave away, I think it was 20,000 backpacks to kids in the Tampa Bay area. And having a partner like that is really awesome because you get to firsthand see all of the difference that they're making in the community. So it is dollar signs, but it's also because it's for a good cause.
Sure. So
speaking of events, my turn. Speaking of events, tomorrow the Bucks are unveiling their new beach, which is, I believe, outside, and then the 76. Yeah, the 70. Is it at 76 bar?
Bar 76. Yeah.
Bar 76. Yeah, I almost said 63. I knew it was like, I'm like, oh, they named after David Logan. I'm like, nope, it's because they have 76 beers. Oh, close. I know
And it's
that's
also because our
started in
franchise was
76.
started in 1976.
Oh, okay. Well,
See
I
what we did
didn't
there?
know that. See,
See what
this is why you're on. Can you walk us through, because I know the media gets to go there tomorrow. Can you give us sort of a talk about, because you know a little bit what's there. Can you talk about and sort of give
Yeah.
fans what's going on with those two new locations at the stadium?
Yeah, I actually just I think I wrote an article about Bar 76, and I just literally before we hopped on this podcast, I finished an article about Bucks Beach itself. So it's really cool. I think this whole concept that came together. Bucks Beach it's a pregame entertainment area essentially, and it's going to be open 2 hours before the game, before every home game. And you don't need a ticket to get in. So anybody that's even just tailgating and doesn't have a ticket to the game, they can go on the South Plaza. And there's going to be food trucks lined up, and they rotate every game. There's a bunch of like bar portables, like Bud Light is a huge sponsor. They're going to have signature drinks there too. And then there's actually going to be sand. Like you're going to be able to sit in giant Adirondack chairs or lounge in a hammock while you're sipping on drinks right outside the stadium. And there's a DJ, there's games, there's giveaways, there's prizes, it's like entertainers. I think there's gonna be like hula hoop girls and like anything you can kind of imagine that would be a really fun, like beachy atmosphere. They're kind of trying to meld and incorporate, what Tampa Bay is and what Florida is into game day, which I think is really cool.
And Bar 76?
That is part of the East Club renovation. And so the entire East Club got redone, and the Bar 76 there was a lower galley, and it was kind of like this. I think you actually had to like reserve a table there prior to the game. There was like a buffet or whatever. But now they've turned it into just a sports bar, but it again has like that local Tampa flavor because it has 76 different varieties of beer, most of which are from local breweries. Which is really cool. And they're going to have a bunch of different food that's not like available anywhere else. And yeah, we got to sample some of it, and they have a shrimp po' boy that is just loved.
Yeah, my seats are actually in the East Club, so I got to visit Bar 76 during the preseason for those two games, and they've got a cold nacho bar over there too that was really good, like really, really good what they're putting out there. So, yeah, it's nice the upgrades and stuff that they've done to the East Club. I've never been over the West Club. I'm sure some of those upgrades were really nice, over the last couple of years, but. It's been nice. They've added more seating around the lounge area as well,
right?
To let people in. So it should be fun. I can't wait to check out this weekend. I want to come over and check out that beach thing though. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So Carmen, kind of bringing it in towards this is going to take place in our final thoughts episode where we're talking a lot about the Eagles game. So talk to us about the game. So you were home. Were you watching it at home, or were you at work, so to speak, watching the game? What's that experience?
The Saints game.
Oh, for this. Yeah,
the Saints game. I'm sorry. Yes. I mean the Saints game.
Yes. Yeah. No, I still have to work during the game. So I do a game summary after every game. So I'm glued to my television. I'm tweeting up a storm. You guys have seen. As the game goes on. So yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I was very happy. I'm ecstatic. But I wasn't shocked.
Right.
And I know that's obviously the convenient answer because, you're supposed to say that you're a Bucs fan, you work for the team, blah, blah, blah. But if you're paying attention during the preseason, like there was nothing that happened. I mean, Fitz had a crazy day, and he had a crazy day for anybody. I don't care if you're Tom Brady. Having a day like that is insane and commendable, and no one expected that. But you look at like these receivers, and like Peyton Barber got in there a little bit, and it was like you just saw things that you saw during training camp the whole time, and they were just put out there and they were executed well. So I wasn't shocked by any of that. Honestly, the biggest surprise was I don't think the defense had the coming out party that they wanted to. But I hope and I think that it'll be settled in a little bit more. I think the secondary was a little bit of a, with Brent Grimes going down late, and then later in the week, I should say, he was scratched as of Friday. And there was a little bit of rotation in there, but
then Hargreaves went down.
And then Hargreaves went down at the end of the game. So, and you're throwing rookies out there. At one point, when Justin Evans came out for like 2 plays, I think all 3 of our defensive backs that we drafted in this last class were out there.
Right.
At the same time.
Yeah.
And you're like, and that's a heck of I'm sorry. Like, I know that it's an excuse or whatever, but like, you're going from a college program to going against a Hall of Fame quarterback. And
in the loudest dome in the league.
In the loudest dome, in a very hostile environment. More than loud. Like, these guys are just insane.
Yeah.
And, it can just get too big for you. I mean, I think you saw that even with, like, when the Bears-Packers played on Sunday night, like, that last drive where the Bears had a chance to come back and all they needed was a field goal. Even for Trubisky, this is his second year in the league, like, it just got too big for him. And it happens. And these guys are human, So I think that now that they're settled in and they know exactly what to expect, I think, the secondary is going to kind of, shore up a little bit. And hopefully that will, because it's all related. The defensive line can't get the pressure they have if there's options open for Breeze to get, the ball out quickly. And he was firing it to Alvin Kamara on all cylinders in that middle level, knowing that Alvin Kamara was going to have to be covered by one of the linebackers then. But it's all relative. It all works together. And I just think that they'll settle down a little bit. And hopefully, we have 2 guys on our defensive line that are very, very familiar with this Eagles team. So
sure.
That's a good point. And I would urge Buck fans, and Brent and I are going to talk about this later, sort of like he said in the Final Thoughts episode. I rewatched the game today, and the second half defense played a lot. I mean, seriously, played a lot better than they did in the first half. Mm-hmm. They really only allowed 1 touchdown, and that was off the back of 2 back-to-back not personal fouls, but 15-yard penalties. And then the last touchdown the Saints got to get it with an 8, they were just playing soft zone, and they were saying, yes, we're going to let you score, but you got to do it 7 yards at a time. You're going to have to take all this time off the clock. So the third quarter, they didn't let them score, and they played like. Glad I'm a podcaster. The second half, they played a lot better in the first half, and they played a lot better in the final score. Actually, dictates or indicates.
Yeah. And I wrote, like, one of my takeaways in the article that I wrote for the website was, the defense did better than you think they did.
Right. Exactly.
So I know, and again, I'm always taking the optimistic view, and I'm,
so are we.
Right. I truly believe that. So, I think that we'll be just fine.
So, Carmen, I'll give you a chance here. Give us a favorite moment from the game for you.
Oh, wow. Well, okay. So I'll talk through this. My thought process here. So you never want to get too up, especially like when you're not sure what's actually going to happen.
Right.
And so the beginning, like when the Bucs answered right away, right, on that 58-yard bomb to Deshaun,
Mm-hmm.
which was just like, I feel like the dream come true for every Bucs fan watching. Like, finally, we got the long ball.
Mm-hmm.
We've been seeing it all preseason. We got it. So initially, like in hindsight, that would have been my favorite moment, is like seeing like right off the bat, it was aggressive. It, set the tone. And it was like, okay, the Saints may have just scored on us, but we're going to hit right back and we're going to do it like really effectively. But in the moment I was like, no way, like this, like I was still like being very, very cautious. Like, okay, can we keep this pace up? Can we keep this pace up? So I would actually venture to say that my favorite moment was Deshaun's second touchdown. Because I think that's when I kind of got, I was like, oh, wow. Okay, we're really doing this.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, we're good. Like, that wasn't just the first touchdown. I mean, and granted, there was the Mike Evans touchdown before that. And then Fitzy decides to just run one in. Even before that, like right after the Deshaun touchdown. So that was great. But I think it was that second Deshaun Jackson touchdown where I was like, okay, he's now caught 2 touchdowns over 30 yards, which qualifies as an explosive play, according to Coach Cutter. And yeah, so I think that was it. Or, I mean, I'm a defensive girl, despite what I just said. And I really loved seeing Justin Evans run a fumble recovery back in for a touchdown. I love Justin Evans. He's one of my favorite defensive players, I think.
Why is that, if I can ask?
He's just so
smooth and athletic.
He's stupid athletic, but he's so cerebral. Like, how he plays is just like he sees the bigger picture, which you have to as a safety, and especially, but like as a free safety, but he can, like, not only can he see it, but he can get there. So I love him. And he's a really low key guy as it is, like outside of anything, but like, he's just a freak athlete but he's got the smarts and the intelligence to back him up.
Yeah. We all got our favorite players. Last one from me, Carmen. And you were talking about tweets earlier. So when exactly can you tell us when you started to hate fantasy football?
Oh, so I've always not liked fantasy football. I played it. And I've played it, since I was in high school, but it makes you root for the wrong things. Like, I don't want to have to be okay with a loss because the player that I drafted on my team did well against my actual team. Like, if I had Alvin Kamara and we lost the game against the Saints, I don't want to have any consolation that we lost against the Saints.
But it didn't happen. I have Alvin Kamara. He scored me 41 points.
I realize that, but football is the ultimate team game. You're going to it is. And True. Fantasy takes the team aspect out of it. And I don't like that.
Well, whatever. I'm done, Brent. I can't talk anymore.
So, Carmen, you want to be part of our dual Pewtercast fantasy football league next year?
Sure.
All right.
Like I said, I still play it, but it's just I do not play for any sort of monetary incentive. But it is like bragging rights all over, right? So, I mean,
yeah.
You want those bragging rights, and I get it. But, like, also, though, as much as you say that you can study, like, fantasy and you can, like, be all up on, like, the strategy, especially when you're drafting and all this and who you're starting, who you're sitting, all that other stuff, no one really knows.
Carmen, just kind of as we wrap this up, as we record this, I know the players, I don't know, it's Tuesday night for us, so I know players get back to work tomorrow, practices and stuff resume tomorrow. I assume they had Victory Monday yesterday and got the day off, and Tuesday's also usually a day off. But what's the buzz been around or Advent Health Training Center, whatever you guys call it? Like what's the feeling in the building, these last couple of days?
It's been really great because it is exactly how Coach Cutter describes it, because he's not one that enjoys wins, or, I mean, he's so just back to work. Like, we're doing this right away. And, like, everybody has kind of followed suit. Granted, yes, they enjoyed, the heck out of the win, and they're so obviously, like, it's better than the alternative, but
right.
It's very like, no, it's back to work now, especially now because, all right, you kind of put the rest of the NFL on notice. Like, we're not the team from last year anymore. And
there's
you better
no
watch
surprising
out for
people.
us. Like, there was even an article on Eagles.com, and it was one of their writers that was like, okay, Tampa Bay, we see you, or something like that. It was like some headline like that. And it was like, basically, in so many words, he essentially acknowledged that the Eagles weren't taking the Bucs seriously prior to last Sunday, or this past Sunday. Mm-hmm. And while I understand that, and like, I don't know, no one else sees what goes on, in training camp or whatever, other than the fans and who's in the building. But the guys are very much like, no, we really need to prove ourselves. And we need to prove that what happened in Louisiana was not a fluke, and that we are this team and we can, keep going. So it's really back to work. It's back to business as usual. There was no confetti, no streamers. It was one game. And
we'll save that for the parade at the Super Bowl, huh?
Right. But at the end of the day, too, there's an understanding that this was one game that these guys had quite a long time to prepare for. Mm-hmm. And granted, you can get a little bit ahead, but it's a week by week league. So now this is kind of getting into the swing of, all right, now it's moving on to the next opponent, and now we only have a week to do it.
Right.
And so you don't have the element of surprise as much anymore and all that kind of stuff. So they're really, really focused and really back to work, and it's really cool to see.
All right, guys. Well, that was Carmen Vitale. You guys can find all of her work over at Buccaneers.com. That's where it all gets posted up. And hey, listen, give her a follow on Twitter. Her Twitter address is @CarmieV. That's @CarmieV. Carmie V. As Ren said, she's a really fun Twitter follow. So you guys will love that. All right, Ren, well, let's go ahead and kind of turn our thoughts towards our final thoughts from the game. We already got through the instant cast where we gave all of those initial reactions and initial responses. But, man, we'll start overall, and then we'll go offense, defense, and special teams. But overall, final thoughts now that you've had a chance to rewatch the game film. You've done your DAC stats. And, what you got for us, man?
Oddly enough, I do have some things. Jacquizz Rodgers is the new Charles Sims. And I know it's only one game, and these are highly reactionary takes, but, I was about to say Cutter. Monken, tried to force feed the ball to Rodgers when he was in there sometimes, because let's face it, if Ronald Jones could pass protect as good as Jacquizz Rodgers can, he'd be there. And Jacquizz Rodgers, they would swap spots in the depth chart. And he'd be head of Jacquizz Rodgers. Ronald Jones is a better running back, better pass catcher, probably not, but not bad enough where you would take. He's better of a runner enough that pass catching gap makes up for it. What he can't do as well as Jacquizz Rodgers, and what Jacquizz Rodgers is excellent at, is picking up the blitzing linebacker and being that for pass protection, but. It's sort of the opposite. I guess it's the same thing of what used to be Charles Sims. Like, okay, Charles Sims is in there. We're not going to run the ball, which I really don't care about. But they sort of force-fed quiz the ball so the defense wouldn't think that, basically to keep him honest. He had a couple of runs and like one was for a loss. I think the most he ever had was like 2 yards. I think he might actually finish the game with negative yards. He caught a pass that was for like a yard. I'm not trying, I'm not trying to be overreactionary here, but going back and looking at the game was something that I noticed, like, look at that. Jacquizz Rodgers is now Charles Sims. Interesting.
It's interesting you say that because, and I didn't particularly track Jacquizz Rodgers on my rewatch, but I do remember having that one of my thoughts while I was watching the game. It was very similar that he's the new Charles Sims. The difference being that I was seeing was it always felt like to me whenever Charles Sims came out onto the field, they were always throwing him the ball. Like, if he was coming in, the ball was going to him. He wasn't just in for pass blocking. I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm just saying that's the way it always felt. There were a few times I remember seeing yesterday that when Jacquizz was in the game, that he really was there to pass block. Like, he wasn't guaranteed the ball. I agree with you. I think sometimes they force-fed him the ball, but it didn't seem so obvious to me that they were always going with him. But I 100% agree with what you're saying, and I hear that Jacquizz Rodgers, he's the new Charles Sims.
No, I agree with you. Like, it didn't always happen when Charles Sims went in there, but it was a high percentage that if Charles Sims was in there, they were, he was going to go out in a route. He wasn't necessarily in there for pass blocking. And they used Jacquizz Rodgers yesterday as a 6 offensive lineman, like, instead of using a tight end, they're like, no, you go out in the route, and we'll have Quiz come in there and be that, that extra protection for Fitzpatrick.
And that's kind of funny because Jacquizz is really tiny.
Yeah, he is.
As an extra lineman, he's teeny tiny. Mm-hmm. Okay, moving on.
Okay. Sitchy made a couple of plays. He got called for a penalty on, they called it a blocking below the waist or something when he was actually the defender. So that didn't make any sense. Basically what he did was he dove through his blocker and cut his knees out but did it with enough force to cut that guy's knees out, and then got the ball carrier behind him. And it was the one where he almost slipped on his head, and they threw a penalty on him. But Dirk Cutter told him when he made the team that he was going to have to be a special teams demon for him. And he's holding down that last linebacker spot where he'll probably never see the field unless it's due to injury. So he has to be that, like I said, that special teams monster. And I think he had the first 2 tackles on special teams. So Tichy flashed a little bit for me. Something I saw from Vernon Hargraves was on that fumble, where he came in there and made Gillislee fumble. If you watch it, he's also hanging on to like one of the lineman's legs from the Saints. Like he sees a fumble and he sees it down. He sees like a Saints lineman go for it, and he just like grabs onto his ankle and just sort of hang on for dear life. This guy is sort of dragging him, across the field to get to the fumble.
So what you're saying is that Vernon basically prevented that guy, or had a hand in preventing that guy from getting the ball.
He definitely had a hand. I don't know if he would have gotten it because, Just Seb was moving pretty fast, but I just thought it was like a really heads up play to, first off, you get in there, you force the fumble, then you locate the ball, you realize that you're not going to be able to get to it, and then he instinctually automatically flips to, okay, I have to stop the Saints from getting it. And he just grabs on the first guy's leg he can. And, like I said, he's like 300 pounds and you're sort of dragging him down across the field. But I thought that was a heads up play by Vernon, something that not probably everybody would have seen. Golston, I'm telling you, he's going to get a punt block this season. I'm not going to talk about what I saw. I'm not going to talk about, special teams too much, but I'm throwing it out there that I think Will Golston's going to get a punt block this year. He got on there a couple times and he was kind of close.
Okay.
After the first quarter, the run game was not good. Actually, I've written down terrible, but now when I'm reading it, I think that's probably a little too harsh. But after that first quarter, I don't think the Bucs ran the ball. I think the longest run was probably from Sean Wilson. That was 6 yards. A lot of 2 yard, a lot of 3 yard. I mean, they're effective. They move the chains. So a lot of times they're on first down. So it'd be 2nd and 7, second and 6 maybe. But there was also, those gashes where Peyton Barber, I think, broke off back to back, where it was 2 first downs and one was over 20 plus yards after the first quarter. That whole thing seemed to go away, and it really didn't matter which side of the line he was running on. Just something to look at, keep in mind.
It's interesting you say that because I remember at the Instant Cast. And I don't know if I verbalized this or not, but I remember thinking man, this running game was on point. This running game was jacked up. This running game was great. And on my rewatch, I kind of had the same feeling of it was really good the first quarter. And it was okay the second. And then it just kind of went downhill from there. It just kind of mellowed, whether that was the Saints defense stepping up and
it was.
Making a block, or whether it was our offensive line not blocking well enough, or just, holes getting clogged and Peyton Barber or Jacquizz Rodgers, whoever was in there, not being able to shake loose. And
a lot of it in the fourth quarter, the Saints were stacking the box because they knew the Bucs were trying to run the clock out.
Sure.
And so I can understand that, but in the third quarter, it really wasn't there either. Not that they ran a lot in the third quarter, but it was just, when the Bucs really needed to sort of grind out and get a first down on the ground, they didn't do it, and they couldn't do it, and the Saints were stopping them. So I guess the reason I put that down there is kind of the same reason you talked about in your rewatch. At first, wow, that ground game was really good. It started off really good, but as the game went on, it sort of got less and less and less and less.
And Daryl Johnson on the broadcast pumped it up so much as well. He just couldn't stop talking about Peyton Barber. Biggest surprise of the night for him was Peyton Barber. I think
the biggest surprise of the night, Daryl Johnson, was that the Bucs didn't get blown out, and he was looking for any excuse to grasp onto to talk about that. Yeah, he had his mind made up that the Bucs weren't even going to show up in this game, and they were going to be shown the door. You could just tell from his broadcast.
Sure.
Sure. And whatever, fine, you felt that, and whatever. I'm just going to leave that there. Whatever, Daryl Johnson. And this is something that possibly, I don't say won the game for us, but really helped. That last drive where we had the ball, and it was before Fitzpatrick ran out of the pocket on 3rd and 11 and got that first down. It was a first down run to Peyton Barber, and it was -2 yards, so it was 2nd and 10. But we actually had a holding penalty. Demir Dotson got a holding penalty. The Saints declined it. Then I don't know if we ran or threw the ball. Probably ran it because it was 3rd and 11. So we ran the ball for 1 more yard, and then Fitzpatrick breaks out and gets 11. No, I don't think Fitzpatrick breaks out and gets 20 yards or 19 yards. So, a lot of things can happen from being, first and 20 instead of 2nd and 12. I understand why the Saints did it, but the way it played out and how the plays broke down, that holding penalty, not taking, declining it, sort of played out in the Bucs' favor in the end. And that's what I got about things from the game. Sort of my final thoughts on my second walkthrough of seeing things that that stood out to me, and just little nuggets here and there. I know nothing earth shattering, but
sure,
yeah.
I have a lot of I don't have a ton of more specific stuff like you had there, but a lot of it for me is just more, offense. This offense is humming. Carmen said in the interview that it wasn't, this offense came out and did what they did, and it's shocked the NFL world. But it didn't shock anybody who's been around. And I was sitting there thinking, I didn't say it because I actually figured I'd say it right here. I wasn't shocked. Were you shocked?
No,
this. She's right. This is what we saw in preseason.
Exactly.
And not just preseason, but training camp. And we got to be around a lot of training camp this year.
Right. And I think the only difference between sort of this year and last year, even though we did win the game against Chicago, it was a little closer because I think there was Tariq Cohen fumbled and we had a pick six. Tariq Cohen fumbled inside the 20. We got an easy score there. And then we had a pick six from Bobby McClain and got a score there. And then the rest of the season, the stuff that we were hoping for that we saw in the preseason, saw in training camp, didn't translate to the regular season. And the reason everyone was sort of apprehensive and hands off was, hey, we saw this movie last year. We saw this movie last preseason.
Right.
Okay, show it to me when it counts now.
Right.
And they came out and they did, and that's why no one was really shocked or surprised, but it was more of like, okay, it was more like gaining trust back. Like, okay, now I can trust you guys. Now you show me you can do it when it counts. Now I'm ready to be able to, start peacocking a little bit here.
Yeah. And, and here's the thing, because I'll go back to, because I remember last preseason, I think it was you actually. I think it was during game 3. We were there at the game, and I said, I'm worried about their red zone offense. They can move the ball really well up and down. It will, but once they get in the red zone, it's like they fall apart. And even in the preseason, like, it's just the preseason. Let's wait and see. And that carried through the entire season. That was a huge thing last year, was inefficiency in the red zone. This preseason, I was exactly the opposite. I was like, no, these guys they're moving the ball up and down just like they did last year, except this time they get in the red zone and they're finishing the drive. They're scoring. And that's exactly what we saw yesterday or this past weekend. So, this offense, man, this offense looks about as complete as it could possibly be. The defense, on the other hand, still feels like it has holes in it. And it still feels like, there's one part that's strong that's trying to cover up for a part that's a little bit more weak or a lot more weak. And, I get the idea you can't fix everything in one offseason. And I know that they made some giant steps forward, but the defense still feels incomplete. I know you had said on the Instant Cast, Ren, that you don't think that you were talking about it for both defenses, for the Saints and the Buccaneers, but I'm just going to focus on the Buccaneers here. Sure. You don't think that the Buccaneers are going to put out the same kind of performance? You think the Buccaneers defense is better than what they showed on Sunday?
Right.
Yeah. And, I think a big part of that, and I think you just mentioned this a little bit, the defense was horrid, I think, in the first quarter. And the second quarter, they were a little bit better, but not great. But then they came out in the half, and whatever adjustments they made, they actually, I think, had a fairly decent second half.
You could make that argument because they only scoring they shut the Saints out in the third quarter.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
They did get one turnover in the third quarter. It's not like they got because their first turnover, the scoop and score happened in the first half, near the end of the first half. The Saints only scored 2 touchdowns in the whole second half. Now, when you say that, you're like, that's not bad, especially Drew Brees. You go, okay, you get one in the third, one in the fourth, good defensive effort. But then you look at the end of the day where it's like, oh my God, they got 40 points. But, it was only 2 touchdowns. They went for 2 and made it both times. So, going from 24 to 40, it looks like, oh my God, well, did you score 3 touchdowns? Before you do the math, going 24 to 40, it's just 2 touchdowns, 2 extra points. So they end both up in the fourth quarter. I can't remember if I said this on air with Carmen or not, but they shut them out in the third quarter. The first touchdown the Saints scored in the second half was in the fourth quarter, and it came off back-to-back 15-yard penalties for the Bucs.
Right.
They moved from their end of the 50 to in our red zone for doing nothing.
Right.
We did it to ourselves. And then the last touchdown was the Bucs going, okay, we're going to let you score here, but we're going to play the soft zone, and you're going to have to do it 7 yards at a time because we're up 16 points.
And we're trying to run out the clock.
And we're gonna keep you in bounds. We're gonna keep everything in front of us, and we're gonna make you go down the field 7 yards at a time. So the first half was awful. Didn't stop anybody. You know, the second half, you could say they made adjustments. Obviously, they did. And then you could also remember, Vernon got hurt late in the fourth. Yeah. Or not late in the game. I don't remember when it was in the fourth. I think it was before the first of the 2 touchdowns. Don't quote me on that. But as you're looking at it, and we're all yelling and screaming. I shouldn't say yelling and screaming, but we're all concerned on Twitter and a Bucs fandom about how bad this defense looked. Go back and watch just the second half. Don't look at the score. Don't look at the first half. If you go back and watch the second half, it was a pretty good defensive performance. It really was. And I'm sort of hanging my hat on that right now for this Philly game. Plus, Nick Foles ain't Drew Brees, man. Right.
And that's, and there's something to be said for that. Now, all of that said, as far as a final thought, and I do have to take the entire game and the entire execution of the defense.
Right.
I am still wary of the defense, and I'm still kind of holding it at arm's distance. I'm not ready to pound my chest. I'll pound my chest over the offense right now. I'm not doing it for the defense, though.
Should you?
Yeah, and it's. I still don't trust them to make a stop. And I got to tell you, if I'm the offense, in the back of my head, I'm thinking we have to run up the score as high as we can, and we've got to try to be 2 and 3 scores above the opponent at all times, because we can't. Right now, I can't trust the defense to hold the team and not let them come back and score. We can't go up by 3 or 4 points at the end of the game with 2 minutes left in the game and then hand the ball back to the defense and say, hold the line. I'm not there yet. Yet. I hopefully we will be. I think if they continue to improve, they continue to go forward. We're not facing necessarily Drew Brees, and in the Superdome, I think that is also a big factor. We've all talked about how these first 3 games are supposed to be kind of the gauntlet. This is supposed to be what do they say, Ren? It's the hardest 3-game opening stretch in the modern Super Bowl era.
The Super Bowl era, basically. The modern era is the Super Bowl era.
Yeah. So
since Super Bowl 1, which was 3 years ago. Right.
This is the hardest opening 3-game stretch that any team has ever faced, is what they're telling us.
Record.
Exactly. Yeah. And we'll talk about this, I'm sure, later, but I got to tell you, the Eagles, after watching that performance that they had with the Falcons, the defense, I think, will give our offense. The defense is a little scary. The offense doesn't bother me really at all. So,
no,
it'll be an
they
interesting.
They can still put up points. They're missing their first receiver.
Yeah.
Obviously, Nick Foles isn't Drew Brees, but that doesn't mean he can't. We've seen him catch fire. Obviously, they won a Super Bowl with him. And J.J. is not Alvin Kamara, but J.J. is a tough inside runner that is not going to give up. He's kind of like the new beast mode, the new Marshawn Lynch. Right. Just not old and fat.
Right. So all of that. Now, I've got 2 things on the offense. The biggest thing about the offense that I don't get, that I don't like, and I'll preface this by saying what you said at the Instant Cast. Name one person who had a bad game on the offense. You can't really. But the biggest thing that I don't like is this weird rotation thing that they're doing with Evan Smith again. And this time it's just on the other side of the line. And you and I have already had this little conversation off air, and I don't necessarily care to repeat it. But oh my God, stop it. Pick a guy. If Evan Smith is your starter, then let him be your starter. If Beninock's your starter, then let him be the guy. Pick a guy, stay with it. And you know, I don't understand what's going on there. And I mean, even the media guys, like I don't know if they're just not picking up on this. They're all worried about who's calling plays. When I'm kind of sitting here going, okay, let's talk about what's actually happening on the field. Why is this happening again? Because obviously it didn't work last year.
Well, yeah, a couple of things here. One, yeah, it didn't work last year. It was totally two different players. Now, poor Carmen, like we had a discussion with her off air, and you know, I was like, "What are you doing? What are they doing?" You know, because I'm equating her with part of the team, and like she did something change. Here's what I don't like about it. Like, okay, if you say both guys deserve to play, okay, I get that. But here's the thing. Demir Dotson went on record last year saying that he felt bad for Donovan Smith because the guy next to him was always changing. Well, guess what? Now the guy next to Dot is starting to always change. Now, just to clear up, Donovan Smith went on record saying he doesn't care. It doesn't matter to him. So, you know, what Dot thought that Donovan was going through wasn't necessarily the same thing Donovan was actually going through. But now we're not talking about that. We're talking about the guy next to Dot who went on record last year said, I wouldn't want that happening to me. Now it's happening to him. Now, if they're so close, like they both get to play, here's the kicker. And like, you know, you said we're not going to go into it, but we are. Sorry.
Because that's what we do here on the Pewtercast.
Evan Smith is the backup center.
Yeah.
If you get him injured and then Ryan Jensen has to go out for just a play or two, you have to totally screw everyone's. You got to start moving 3-4 different pieces all around the line. You got to move Allie. Okay, so now who's going to play? Who's going to play the other guard? Let's see. Who do we got? Evan Smith. Oh, no, he's hurt.
Right.
So who's the other guy? Well, we got Wester. Okay, so who's playing guard? Is Wester playing guard?
Right.
Does Wester know how to snap? Who's snapping now? So this total bum effing situation that could possibly pop up. I mean, offensive linemen go down all the time.
Right.
You know, they stepped on, they get run over, they get rolled up on. If Evan Smith and Jensen get rolled up on the same play, what do we do?
Right.
Like, what do we do?
Right.
So if it's that close between Beninock and Smith, just keep Beninock in there because the possibilities of losing Smith and what might happen, the repercussions that makes, it's not worth it.
I agree. Wholeheartedly agree. Wholeheartedly
It's not
agree.
worth it.
Wholeheartedly agree.
And he's like a 19-year vet. I also said this to Carmen, was like, look, I'm glad he's on the team. I want him active. He can play active on Sundays. He can play 3 positions. He's a coach on the field. He's coached up the younger guys. He's got lots of knowledge. I want him on my team. I don't want him on the field. He's not a starter. I'm sorry. You know, he's had his shot. He started for us. He's a very good player. You
know what he's like? You know what he's like? He's like the Ryan Fitzpatrick of the offensive line. He's a backup, and he's a good backup, and I want him to be a backup, but he's not my starter. And if he has to start, then fine, we'll take it for a couple of games. But mostly, he's my backup, and that's where I want him. And that's the spot that because I'm with you. I think this team
starts for a couple of games. What? The Bucs are going to bring up a center off the practice squad, or sign one, or bring back Geddes because Geddes can snap, or activate Kappa because Kappa can snap.
Right.
But doing it in the middle of a game, like
I just don't get it.
What do you do? You're opening the door for disaster for no reason.
Yeah, and you know, you and I had a conversation earlier where we were trying to figure out what could possibly be going on in their mind, because surely it's not just surely we're not in this, neither one of them won the starting job thing that they gave us last year.
I think that's exactly
and that might be it. But I mean, ultimately, you got to sit back and say, okay, who, like, is everybody okay with this? Like, do Monk and Warhop not come up to Cutter and be like, okay, Cutter, we got to pick a guy? Like, surely we're not the only ones who see this. Fisher sees it. Derek over at What the Buck sees it. People across Bucks podcasting community, we talk about this. We don't get it. I just don't. And the only thing that I think the only thing that I can come back to is just maybe we're just dumb fans who don't see the whole picture and they know something we don't.
And that's probably the best explanation so far.
Yeah,
it really is. There might be some reason that we're not thinking of. We can't see that they're doing it, but
and I'd like for somebody to ask and find out why and dig that out, because I want to know. And if there's a strategic reason that they don't want to tell the world because they don't want to tip somebody off, then fine, tell me that. I don't care. Just okay. Moving on from that. The last final thought I have on this deal. I love Monken calling the plays, but I just want to remind everyone he's not doing it in a vacuum. It's not like Dirk Cutter said, "Okay, Monk, you go call the plays, and I'm going to go stand over here by the Gatorade tank." Like, Monk, Cutter's still very much a part of this. I think what had far more of an impact on the game this week than Monken calling the plays was that the players themselves were executing. And we heard that in Cutter's press conference from yesterday, I think it was, as we record this. You heard it from Monken himself in the offseason. The team did not execute last year. Like, we can talk about bad play calling and whatnot. The team wasn't executing the plays that were called. This year, at least after one game and then what we've seen through the preseason, they're executing. And I think that has far more to do with the success of this team after a game. I mean, I think the two work in tandem, but I think the players executing, we're not giving enough attention to that, and we're focusing as a fandom way too much on who's calling the plays.
Yeah, I'm with you. The offensive line, the protection yesterday was phenomenal, unbelievable.
Even with that rotation between Benedict and Evan Smith, even with that.
Honestly, I never noticed the rotation until people started talking about it. Like, I never noticed Emma Smith in the game while I was watching the game live. And now they figured out how to use D-Jack, so that makes things easier. Mm-hmm. OJ Howard, he's actually being thrown the ball beginning of the season. Remember, he didn't get a catch till like week 3 or 4.
Yeah. Yeah. It was late. Yeah.
Well, he did. I think he got that thing, that touchdown against the Giants, like week 3 or something, or week 4. And then he kind of went away again. But he wasn't getting the ball early. Same with Chris Godwin. The only reason he really got on the field is because Deshaun Jackson got hurt. That's where he started to get all his catches and all his yards. But now these guys are like up to speed, and the offensive second hand, and the offensive line is giving protection. They're actually opening up holes most of the time. It's about execution. Like, I can go back there and complete some passes. I shouldn't say that's not true. My hand's too small for an NFL football. I need like a J5Y. I don't know. But I'm just saying that it's for an NFL quarterback, backup or not, to be able to sit back there and have that much time. You hear it all the time. If you give them that much time, anybody can pick you apart. And that's what happened with, Fitzpatrick had all day.
Yep.
Which didn't happen last year.
Yep. So the team executed. All right, man. Well, for the sake of time, let's go ahead. Let's hand out our grades as we wrap up today's episode. We'll kind of go through it like we did last year. We'll do offense, defense, special teams, and we'll give the team an overall grade. So, man, I'll throw it to you first. What grade do you give the offense?
A+. I mean,
how could you not? How could it be anything different?
They had 1 3 and out, I think. That was it.
Right. Agreed. I for everything that you just said, yes. They're A+. All right, how about the defense?
I'm giving them a D+. Gave up 40 points, no matter how much I just went on that soliloquy about how great they played in the second half or how much better they played in the second half. They still did give up 2 late touchdowns to make it close, and give us a little scare. So, yeah, you can't forgive those things. But they did get 2 turnovers. But a C-, but giving up 40 points, I just can't give a C-, so I'm giving them a D+.
Yeah, I'm not quite a D+. I'm actually just got them at a D. They didn't fail. They did not fail in their endeavors, but they came in below average, below expectations for me. So yeah, I give them a D, just a solid D. All right, how about special teams, man?
D. He made an easy 33-yarder. He made all his extra points. Brian Anger punted once, so really is what they're to grade. Sean Wilson had a nice kick return. The first one, the only one I think he really got to return. Hump had a nice return of one.
They had D-Jax returning one of the punts.
Yeah,
in the game.
He did.
Yeah,
he got the first one, and he got like 2 yards. Then Humphreys had one that went for like 2 yards, and then he got one and we scored it free for like 10. I might have those backwards, but not much. I'm sorry, not much as far as the punt return and kickoff return, and that 44-yarder that's considered. You have to make it.
Right.
In the NFL, you have to make a 44-yard field goal. You just have to, and especially when that would have iced the game with like 6 minutes left.
Yeah.
Like
it did make a difference.
It made a big difference. Like that's why Fitzpatrick had to get that first down.
Right.
I mean, what are you gonna? If he doesn't make it, and you punt the ball to Drew Brees. Even if you do pin him at the 5, he's got a minute 36 to drive the field. Is he going to do it? Yeah, no Hargraves, no Grimes. Is he going to do it and then get the 2-point conversion? Of course he's going to do it. Just like we knew Aaron Rodgers was going to come back in Chicago. You just knew it. Like he's going to do it.
That's what he does.
So that's what he does. That's why he's Drew Brees. That's why he's Aaron Rodgers. So Catanzaro makes that all that's moot. So I guess I'm going to have to give him a D because he didn't do his job. He made the easy kicks and nothing really to talk about as far as punts and kickoff returns and all that stuff. So the one that it mattered where it would ice the game to step on the throat, he missed.
Yeah. And I'm with you on that. This one I did give them a D+.
Okay.
Just that's nitpicking. So you give them an A+, a D, and a D. What's that give you as far as an over? How do you think the overall team did? How would you grade them out?
Overall team, I'm giving them a B-. It probably doesn't average out right, but going on the road, first game of the year against a Super Bowl contending team who probably, you could make a real strong argument should have been in the Super Bowl last year. It wasn't for that, miracle in Minnesota. I know they would have had to play who the hell came from the NFC last year? The Eagles. Yeah. I heard they won. So they would have had to play the Eagles, but I mean, the Saints are rolling, man. They're on all cylinders. And so you could make that argument that, it's a Super Bowl team. It's a Super Bowl contending team. You win in their house. And you won, and you beat a first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback, a really improved defense that was, supposed to be gelling and clicking on their second year. And the Saints were, everything was firing. No pundit anywhere gave us a chance to win that game. We had the biggest spread of any line in Vegas, 9.5 points, and we went in there and we won. So that's why you get the B- because you did. The ultimate goal was achieved. It doesn't matter how bad the defense played. You won the game, and that's all really anybody cares about. 4 weeks into the season, we're not going to go, oh, look, we're 2-2 or we're 3-1, but that one of those 1-3 wins, that wasn't a very good win. Like as soon as kickoff happens Sunday at 1:00, the Eagles game, no one cares about what happened in the Saints game.
Exactly.
No one cares.
Exactly. It's what did you do for me this week kind of a league.
That's right.
For me, I'm a little bit higher than you on that. I give the team overall a B+. And that's with, as you said, it doesn't really probably average out right, but the offense was so on point. And even with the defense being what they, having their hiccups, the offense was able to come in and complement the defense and keep us ahead enough to not actually let the game get out of hand. Because I got to tell you, if Drew Brees would have come back and the Saints would have gotten up above the Bucks again, I don't think we would have come back and I don't want to say we wouldn't come back and call them. I just think they would have kept going and they would have kept rolling. So to me, the team did, I think, work together. Although we certainly have a lot to be desired with the defense there. So I give them a B+ as an overall effort. All right, guys. Well, that is going to do it for this episode. You guys make sure you stay tuned later this week because we will be releasing our fan interaction where we're going to be kind of reviewing the iTunes reviews that have recently come in. We've got some tweets and questions that people have sent in. We've also got some emails that we're going to cover and go over. So you guys be on the lookout for that. But until then, Ren, why don't you tell the folks out there where they can find you on the internet?
The only way to find me is where cool people find me. That's on Twitter at Rendax, REN_DAXT. I'm always down to talk Buccaneers ball.
And if you guys want to find me, I'm at Brent Allen Live across all the social medias, and you can get in touch with the show on Twitter at ThePewterCast or at Facebook.com/ThePewterCast, or shoot us an email to ThePewterCast@gmail.com. We do respond to all forms of feedback, and it's one of the more fun aspects of being a part of this Bucs fan community. Well, guys, until just a little bit later here in the week when we're back with the fan interaction segment, we'll see you then, and until then, go Bucs.